For 15 years, DJ Bob has been your go-to source for pop culture, past and present. We eat, sleep, and breathe pop culture, just like you. He's interviewed countless fascinating people, from well-known names to everyday heroes.
DJ Bob connects with his guests on a personal level, exploring their stories, passions, and challenges.
He's not just interviewing, he's building a community of like-minded, inspiring, driven, and talented individuals.
Join DJ Bob as he delves into the world of entertainment and the conversations that matter on all levels. This is the DJ Bob Show. Roll it.
One of the things that we've been doing a lot lately is we've been interviewing authors of some really great books that you need to check out. Right, Bingel?
Absolutely. A lot of fantastic books out by wonderful people.
And this one is just so damn cool.
Very cool.
Amar Shah is here with us talking about his middle grade graphic novel, Wish I Was a Baller. And it is a 90s time capsule about sports and pop culture, but also the real life problems, trials, tribulations, successes about having a dream and chasing it, and all the things that come along with it in a real compact graphic novel form. And I gotta say, Bingo, it's a genius book.
I love this book. It is fantastic. If anybody wants specifics, we're talking 1995, 96. Little fun fact about him, too. This guy was on the cover of Sports Illustrated for Kids in May of 1996 with Shaquille O'Neal. So that's pretty cool in and of itself. But of course, as Bob said, we talk about, everything that goes on with it, jealousy especially. But there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of 90s pop culture references, which makes me a little left out because I was born in 2000. But like I did, you'll learn a lot from this, I hope. Not just with this episode, but with the book too. Highly recommend.
Some would say that this episode is all that and a bag of chips. Yeah, I had to throw in the 90s slang there for a second.
Of course.
Here's the episode we hope you enjoy, and get the book wherever books are sold. So to start this off, the way I typically start these episodes off is, what is your elevator pitch? Like, if you were to describe your career trajectory in an elevator ride, how would you describe that? You're hitting the button. 3, 2, 1, go.
Hi, my name is Amar Shah, and I am a writer, Emmy-winning producer, and a storyteller. And all my life, I have loved writing. I have loved telling stories, and my bread and butter has always been sports, my South Asian heritage, pop culture, and everything in between.
That's the best elevator pitch, one of the best elevator pitches we've heard. Straight to the point. We love it. And where I want to start out is your book. I mean, could you kind of tell us, like how this book came to be? And you've had these stories since you were a teenager. What kind of made you want to put it in a book form and in this way?
So I was really lucky. When I was around 14 years old, I was in the right place at the right time. The Orlando Magic were in their heyday with Shaquille O'Neal and Anthony Penny Hardaway. The NBA was, I like to say, in its golden age with Michael Jordan coming back from his retirement. So it was a perfect timing where it was sort of May of 1995, and I was a freshman at Dr. Phillips High School in Orlando, Florida. the home of I like to say of NSYNC and how they
Yeah,
started.
and Wayne
And it was
Brady, everybody.
yeah, Wayne Brady, Britt Marling. I mean, a whole host of 90s stars had their start at Dr. Phillips High School. And so, while I was studying for a math test, um, the doors opened suddenly and a glut of students came through and everybody was like the Chicago Bulls are in the gym. And, we're all like, what? And then the reality hit that wait, this could possibly be true. So all of us sprinted, to the other side of like campus to the gym, and we saw all of these police officers and security officers and media and students surrounding the gym. And we were all wondering, how are we going to get in? And so I was going to be in the journalism class the following year, but I was like, you know what? This is my time to to really make my mark. So I ended up getting a press pass, getting into the gym. Jordan sprints past me, but I ended up interviewing Phil Jackson. And so I was like around 5 feet tall at the time, wearing a Knicks hoodie, and I ended up kind of sneaking through and then asking, him a question. He kind of looks up and down, sees my Knicks logo, and is like, turn bleep around. And from that point on, the journalism bug kind of just hit me. And I ended up, obviously reporting on that time period, getting, that incident reported in so many different newspapers and even in a book, to memorialize the occasion. And so I got that first, um, flush of like, that the rush of being a journalist, right? And being a sports journalist. So I wanted to get a press pass to the Orlando Magic. And I hustled and I faxed, I used fax machines. I called them. And finally, after pestering them for so long, I ended up getting a press pass to a Magic game, preseason game in October of 1995. And when I walked into the locker room, there is Shaq sitting, at his locker talking to a couple of reporters. And even when he's sitting down, he's probably taller than me. And so he's like, I don't talk to reporters, right? And I'm like, I just want to ask a couple questions. And, at this time, he's probably the most popular athlete on the planet, right? Because Jordan has just come back. And so I end up doing a 30-minute interview with him. And he ends up getting hurt that same game. So I basically got the last interview with Shaq before, he busted his thumb. And so that allowed me, that I was able to write a story for Magic Magazine. And then I started writing for Slam, the basketball magazine that's pretty much defined 90s basketball. And then I started, and I became friends with Shaq, ended up on the cover of Sports Illustrated for Kids. And I knew those times were like sort of like almost famous, right? Where Cameron Crowe covers like rock and roll in the
Mm-hmm.
70s. And he built his entire career on those young moments of when he was a teenager. So as I was growing older and I pivoted towards sports, I knew that at some point I'm going to revisit this time in my life. And periodically I would, everybody kind of knew it as like a little anecdote about me. But after my son, after actually Shaq retired in 2011, I wrote an essay for ESPN.com. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? I have more to this story than just a simple, recollection of Shaq. And, it's time, I got to find the right time to tell that. I've always wanted to write a novel. I always wanted to write a memoir. And so after my son was born in 2015, I got that itch to really put pen to paper. So over the next 5 years, I wrote a young adult memoir about that year of 1995 and 1996. All of the crazy things that happened to me, the things that just didn't seem real. But the great thing is I always had photography and, just like all of this stuff that I kept. And I was able to then put something together around in 2020, like a first draft. I got an agent. We ended up pitching the book, to different publishers, and nobody really nobody bit on the manuscript as it was. I got some really nice, encouraging publisher feedback from like Scholastic, and they actually ended up giving me a book deal separately. So as I was writing that, my agent had the idea of refocusing the story as a graphic novel. And I was like, hey, that's a great idea. So she teamed me up with my illustrator, Rashad Duquette, and we ended up putting the proposal together and sold it to Scholastic and ended up working on it for about 3 years. And now it's called "Wish I Was a Baller," which was obviously the famous Skee-Lo song from 1995 that
Yes.
became sort of yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So it became like a soundtrack for my time period, and it was like that was a title from the very beginning, and it never changed. I mean, there were some other 90s like tracks that I thought about, but either they came out after everything occurred or they just didn't hit the theme. And this is perfect. And so yeah, and so we put this together. Rashad was also a 90s kid, and and it's dipped in 90s nostalgia, but it's also a lot more. So obviously kids in the 90s who grew up in the 90s can read it, and kids now can read it to understand the 90s and also find a story that hopefully can inspire them.
See, because I was born in 94, but I have older sisters, so I was exposed to everything in that world. So like people always judge me. People always say like you're before your time and how do you know all this stuff? Like you lived it and it was because I consumed it all. So
That is such a mood for me. You have no idea because I just missed out on the 90s. I was born in 2000, so I barely missed out on the 90s, but I've learned to adapt and grow from the 90s because I missed out on it. Now I'm just like, man, I missed out. So,
Oh,
but
what I love about that era is that it was right between sort of like, the before the internet and during the internet, right? So I got like on America Online, I would say my like sophomore and junior year in high school. And that's when AOL was obviously, it was dial up, it was the 50 free hours of the CD. It was like being on your parents' phone line and them telling you to hang up. It was about waiting for that screen name or for that girl you had a crush on to get on, and you hear that sort of door open and the door close,
and
and
the
your heart
away
was
you're
like,
writing your away message.
yeah, actually, this was even before away messages. Away messages sort of started, I would say, in the latter part of the 90s, but during that like 95, 96, 97 time period, it was all about buddy lists, right? It was all about, your screen names and who your friends were and profiles and chat rooms. And so I ended up, obviously like talking to friends, meeting people, and just like, finding like-minded folks like during that time period. And it was awesome because, it was the heyday, right? And so I grew up with that sort of that nostalgia and a lot of, there's scenes in this book that take place, with AOL in mind.
Yep.
And I actually, what's so crazy is I had conversations that I had with people and I would save them as like doc files or TXT files. And I kept them, the past like 20, 25 years. And it was a perfect time capsule for me to kind of open up and see what I sounded like, see what I was looking for or, where so it was cool that I had this archive of
It wasn't
material that
like
I
the memories that you had that were kind of fuzzy or just you actually had accounts of what you said and what you did, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because, obviously like when you write a memoir, certain names, of those that are innocent and guilty have to be changed, right? Like you don't want to, someone like my closest friends are named Rohit and Cherian, and so I'm still friends with them now, and I'm still friends with a number of the people that are actually in the book. But what was funny is that the girl named Casey, who her real name was like there were two girls, there was like Kelly and there was a Mindy, right? And so, but there was a real live Casey, and so there was this girl that I actually became friends with in the night, like on in AOL, and we've been friends for almost 30 years now. on every platform, and you won't even imagine this. We still have never met in real life.
Wow.
She was this girl in California. As a '90s kid, like what was the thing like a guy growing up in the '90s would be interested? Obviously, for me, it was cheerleaders who were into hip hop, right? So she was a cheerleader who was into hip hop who lived in California. We struck up this incredible conversation and friendship, and we've been friends for 30 years. She's got kids, been married, divorced. And like but we've just stayed in touch on every social media platform. And so, as a little homage to her, I named the character Casey.
That's so great. That's so
That's
yeah,
cool.
it's really a love letter to your life and all these things. And something that I really admired about the book is it's about the pop culture, about the sports of it all, but it's also dealing with things that teenagers go through, rejection, liking someone and them not liking you back, the idea of imposter syndrome or being too cool. Do you want to talk a bit about those themes being showcased in the book as well?
Yeah, it was so much like I was saying, right? So much of this is marinated, at that time period. And I kept so many things from that era, not just like yearbooks, but I kept all of my posters, all of my NBA stat sheets. I remember I still had a laminated poster of Kelly Kapowski, Tiffany Amber
Oh my
Thiessen.
God.
And I still had it for some reason, but I knew that I was going to write about this at some point, right? And pop culture was so intertwined, right? Where even if you look at the cover of the book, I'm wearing a John Starks #3 Knicks jersey, who was my favorite player, and one of obviously the most beloved New York Knicks players. And, to some, he was a rival to Michael Jordan. Not really, but I like to think that. Um, but again, it was like, think about it. 1995, 96 was the greatest basketball team of all time with the Chicago Bulls, right? And I got to spend an entire morning, Saturday morning later with Jordan, Scotty, Michael Jordan. And I'm like, who gets a chance to do that? And it wasn't just like some other Bulls team. It was like the '90s greatest team. It was like the Last Dance Chicago Bulls, right? It was all of the music of that era, right? Like it was the Kangol. I used to love hip hop. I still love '90s hip hop, right? But that was the soundtrack, and it wasn't just like Pac and Biggie. It was Outkast, it was Wu-Tang, it was all of those incredible artists back then. And even the wardrobe, right? Like I would wear like Mecca, Karl Kani, Pele Pel, Boss, like all of these great brands, right? That were so like '90s specific. And all of that is in the book. And it was great because Rashad is also, a '90s kid. And he was able to, to layer in his own background knowledge of that era. And I think that was really, the fun part was where he was able to take what I had written and put his own spin on it, which kind of gave us, and I always like to say, like we were like Big Boy and Andre 3000 with this chemistry that we had
Yes,
as art and author.
I the thing that I latched onto about this book is the pop culture elements of it, but I also loved how you showcase like real life things that happen, like like girls not liking you and all these things and jealousy and all these things. It's so relatable, but in this specific pocket of time, yet still relatable.
Yeah, it was interesting because as I begin to think about all of, I was very accurate. I try to be as accurate as possible with all of the real life sort of incidences that happened, right? Like obviously OJ trial was going on during my sophomore year, right? Like the verdict happened while I was in high school. And, though it is a book geared for, I would say middle schoolers, it gives them an honest portrait about what happened, during that time period. And, and obviously one of the things that is universal, obviously, is liking someone who you have no shot at winning her heart, right? And so that, all of those things like happened that year where like, I finally had the courage to like, I'm like, oh, I've got some, I'm going to impress this girl by introducing her to Shaq. Little did I know that that would end up getting me essentially fired and in trouble, on my last journalism assignment. It was like, hey, I went out with, with a bang, right? But on top of it, you get this girl to meet Shaq, but she takes her little brother with her. So like, what chance do you have?
Yeah, it's so great.
It really is. Now let's talk about the Magic for a minute. 94, 95, they had a magic, no pun intended, magical year, making it to the finals. Following year, I mean, you're going up again against the greatest team of all time in NBA history against the Bulls. So they had a little bit of magic on their own, but I mean, just getting to be around the players. Before all this happened, did you ever think that something like this would happen to somebody like you? I mean, going back to Sports Illustrated, I mean, come on, we're talking about the biggest sports magazine in the world here for kids, but it's a big deal. Did you ever think that any of this would happen at all? Like, was there some sort of calling or before all this happened, or how do you think it came to be besides just being at the right place at the right time?
I tell these kids, when I go and speak to schools, is that you don't have to be arrogant at all, but you have to have an absurd confidence in yourself. And, I wanted to be a basketball player so badly when I was in middle school, right? Like I tried, I played, I got better, and I got as far as making the last cut of our middle school team, but I didn't make it, right? And so I found my passion sort of like in journalism. And I was in a journalism class my eighth grade year. And I knew at that point, like I wanted, like I had a passion for like, and I put a sports magazine together. That was my big project. Like I knew back then that that was something I wanted to do. Like I had other ambitions of like maybe owning the team or being like a general manager. But when that Chicago Bulls incident happened at my gym, I just felt that there was something there that I needed to chase. And so, it was like the persistence and tenacity, they all went hand in hand, right? It was a perseverance of like, okay, I want to get a pass. I want to get a credential to a game. Like I want to be there, whether it was FOMO, whether it was like getting to see other people, be there. I remember I went to game 7 of the Magic Pacers conference final game, and I so badly, like I tried to get a press pass and I got denied. And the thing with me is when I get a challenge, even now, I will do everything. I have that like it's like that Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality, right? Like I just go after it with as much perseverance as possible. And I knew that, for example, when I interviewed Shaq, right? I'm like, oh, when am I going to chance to talk to him again? What I found out, just from like, my reporter's instinct, if you will, is that his manager was building a New Orleans restaurant right near my high school. So I went there, knocked on the door, ended up talking to his manager, this guy named Dennis Tracy, who's in the book. And he's like, yeah, if you want to come with, we're doing this Shaq Claus event and you can tag along. So I got my parents' permission, ended up tagging along with Dennis, went to Shaq's house, had like lunch there or breakfast there. Then we went to the Boys and Girls Club and there's Shaq. And lo and behold, that entire day, I hung out with him. He drove me home. He hung out at my house, hung out with my brother, hung out with my parents, played basketball, right? I mean, how does that happen, right? It's like, wow. And then I was just able to like take that and make it universal to everybody else. Then I was like, all right, I want to write for Slam Magazine. Call them. I actually got rejections from like Inside Stuff and other magazines, but Slam's like, you know what? Yeah, we'll give you an opportunity. Pitch us a story. I pitched an article about this guy named Sean Respert, who was a shooting guard, point guard for the Milwaukee Bucks. Went there, did the interview, and then, I did a decent job as a 15-year-old telling the story. And then it was like, okay, I can do this. And then, I pitched Sports Illustrated the idea, and initially they were like, okay. And then I wrote the story. They're like, okay, we like this. And then they did a photo shoot that happened at my school. And it wasn't going to be on the cover, and I guess they loved the photos and like the storyline, and then wow, it was a cover story, right? And even now you can buy it on eBay, uh, you know, for like 15 or 16 bucks. I ended up one of the cool things that I own is I own the highest graded copy of that issue. I bought for like 200 bucks. So it's graded and everything.
Mm.
So the only thing I need is I need Shaq to sign a copy for me at some point. But yeah, I always knew that if you have a vision, you will make it happen. It may not happen at the exact moment or time and whatever, but you can make it happen. And I think for me, even writing this book, I knew that this was going to be published. It was a 10-year process almost from when the idea started to when now it's on bookshelves. But guess what? It happened and I worked at it and I knew it. And I knew when I sink my teeth into something, I can make it occur. I can't help myself grow taller, but I know I can do other things.
Well,
What position did you try out for in middle school?
Point guard. There was no
Huh.
way that I could do anything other than, I was like five. I'm still only like 5'5.5", but like then I was like 5'1", 5'2".
Oh,
Yeah, I thought, oh, I could be fast, but I played good defense and I knew how to like get a shot off, but like I was slow and I wasn't athletically gifted. But I tried and I know how to give a hard foul. That was a good thing.
I think the commonality between you and I, Amar, is that we both, started young. I mean, I started this podcast when I was 15 years old. I'm 30 now. We're in our 15th season. And
Amazing.
the thing that made me want to reach out to you is that like you wanted something and you didn't stop until you got anywhere close to it. And I feel like that's what people need to take away from this book, as well as the the story of it all.
Yeah, I wrote this like, look, I initially wrote this as a YA memoir. It was 110,000 words as a prose book, right? And it was a lot more, I would say, American Pie in like theme, right? But what was great in terms of the revision process to adapt it to a graphic novel was sure, I had to cut a lot of like fun and antics and sophomoric things out of there. But what was left was this like amazing story of finding your voice, right? Of being, finding your place in the world despite what the world tries to throw at you. I mean, there were scenes in this book, like for example, when like I like towards the latter part of the year, jealousy started creeping up with so many
Yeah.
people.
Yep.
And
mm-hmm.
the editor in chief of the school paper, and I think a sports editor, ended up putting a hidden message about me in the school paper when the main article was about me, the Shaq issue. And they wrote some nonsensical column about it. And I mean, the message that was in the book versus what was in real life, what was in real life was a lot more savage, a lot more grotesque, and a lot more cruel. But I was able to overcome that. And, I ended up later on in my life working with some of the people who were in the paper at that time. And it was just kind of funny that uh, life works that way. And I'm on better terms with the people that did, kind of make my life harder at that point. But you still haven't forgotten like what you had to do to kind of get over it. And so I think the premise now is to show kids that you don't necessarily need to get on the court, to be a star or to find your voice. You can find it on the sidelines. You can be as persistent and accomplish your dreams being content of who you are. And, that's something that I want to tell my own kids. Like, they're not going to be 6 feet tall, but they can find that they are special. And that's what the underlining theme of this book is that, you know, you are a baller.
Well, I love that so much. So I need to kind of fast forward the tape to November 96. We are a pop culture podcast, so I need to know your thoughts on Space Jam.
Space Jam. It's, Space Jam is it's an interesting film, right? Because like it was funny because Shaq and I think Shaq had Kazam
Yep,
around.
a couple
Mhm.
months earlier. Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, and so what I remember very specifically about Space Jam was obviously that soundtrack. Come and Ride That Train,
yes,
Oh yeah.
Quad City DJs, and that was like the jam like of that summer.
hit 'em high.
Hit 'em
Yeah.
high. Uh, there was another singer in there.
Yep, uh-huh.
But I think yeah, Method Man on Hit 'em High. Like that's such a great track, by the way. Now you're making me want to look up, the soundtrack. But
And
that's
and I gotta say, there's the last track on that album is Bugs Bunny rapping.
Yes.
Do you
oh
know
man,
who wrote that rap?
nah who?
Jay-Z.
That is amazing. No, but there's like, you know, I hit him high. That was like LL Coolio. I mean, Bust the Bus. I mean, D'Angelo was on that soundtrack. Salt and Pepper. I mean, like, dude, D'Angelo's album is so good. Like, it is one of the most slept on 90s albums of all time. Like, it's that, and I feel like Wyclef Jean's like the Carnival. Two
Yep.
great, underrated. I mean, we all know.
But
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
but it's so funny I had to just bring up Space Jam because it was in pop culture and it probably introduced people to Jordan when they didn't audiences may not have been a sports fan, but they brought it into the culture.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's just it was like it was the perfect. Yeah, I was a junior when it came out, right? And I remember that was also when the NBA season started, and Shaq was in LA. Remember, Shaq moved from Orlando to Los Angeles, right? During like that was the '96 Olympics in Atlanta, and that was when they drafted Kobe, uh, the Lakers did. And so it was a whole new era. Like I wasn't writing for Slam. I was just the sports editor of our school paper. But I do remember like Quad City DJ song still is one of my favorite tracks from that era.
I love that. I'm curious to know your thoughts on the Space Jam sequel that came out a few years ago because it was I felt like it was not needed.
No.
Actually, am I wrong? Was Quad City not on that song? That I might be wrong on.
They were on there, but they had their own song. It wasn't "Come on Ride the Train."
Oh, wasn't okay. Well,
it was
Yeah,
this.
but no, it was Space Jam that was on there.
oh, right, the space. Yeah. I'm sorry. So you can see how things kind of conflate that, but that was a Quad City summer.
Yep,
Yeah, it was.
Okay. All right.
I
So I'm
love
not
that.
that. It was the Crossroads summer.
I think, and
Oh,
the cool thing about your book is that hopefully the middle grade audience will will learn about some of these pop culture things and be exposed to it.
Yeah. I mean, because there's so many subtle things in there, right? Like, I have one scene where we go to the mall. right? And there's all those like, now defunct, brands, Spencer's Gifts and, you know, Peaches and all of these like 90s like stores that we all frequented, right? And there are also small things like, for example, the Casey character and what she's wearing was very similar to like Alicia Silverstone and Clueless,
Yep.
right?
Oh yeah.
And so there were so many like things that I think that people are going to go and research and look up, and I at some point I'd love to kind of create like some sort of guide for people to like, oh, what is that talking about, and then reference it that way. But um it's just so cool to like being able to like capture that time period because it really was special, right? And it wasn't just my special to me, but it was like, sort of like that. I mean, you can think about like a Forrest Gump, in a way. That's what I was.
You were the 90s Forrest Gump as Forrest Gump was happening or released. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 1994, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like it's I feel very fortunate that these, like I said, like, and I also want to give props to like my parents, right? Like they are the ones who like would take me to all the different games, pick me up at like 10 o'clock at 11 o'clock at night on a weekday. My mom broke her foot and she still drove me, to a game, and I always like and I also love the fact that like, you know, um, I'm the same age that now that my dad was in the book, which is super cool.
Wow.
Mm-mm.
And it's like, and it was fun like utilizing all the reference points that that they had. And it was cool also to to be an Indian American kid at that time period, right? And being able to write about my culture in a way that's still, approachable for people that didn't grow up in that world.
So I have to ask you this. We talk, obviously, sports and pop culture connect for you on a deep level, but what are some formative pieces of pop culture that you always go back to from your youth?
Music. I think, I mean, the music of that time period, like I cannot get away from it, and nor do I want to,
I'm
because
gonna I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Oh, here we go.
When you think if you were to create a like a companion soundtrack to this book, like a Spotify playlist or a playlist of some kind, obviously I wish would be on there Skilo, but what else would be
Of
on
course.
there?
mm, really, really good. Fuji La, Fuji's,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Montel Jordan, This Is How We Do It.
Yep.
Uh, Nobody Knows, Tony Rich Project.
Nobody talks about them one enough.
Yeah, Deep Cut, right? Uh,
Yeah.
what else is on there?
Any Coolio?
Maybe the I Had 'Em High track. But I was thinking uh LL's Hey Lover, because that came out like 95, right?
That was the Boys to Men duet or the Boys to Men feature. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Trying to think what else? Bone Thugs and Harmony, Crossroads, great song. That was in the summer of 96. Um, but oh, I mean, I'm gonna stick with the Fugees here. Killing Me Softly. Freaking great.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yes.
Alanis Morissette.
We
Um,
just we just did an interview with an author about she did a book about the cultural impact of Jagged Little Pill and how impactful that was. You should check out that episode when you get a minute. It's a real
oh,
good one.
for sure. There's Mobb Deep's Shook Ones.
Mm-hmm.
What else? California Love.
So much good music.
A lot of good music.
Yeah, and I remember the Nutty Professor soundtrack was really good. Oh,
That's a missing art too. The movie soundtrack, come on.
Yes.
Like so many singles were spearheaded from movie soundtracks, especially
dude, what
then.
else? I'm trying to think. I got five on it. Loonies.
Yes.
Mm.
That was one of the tracks I was gonna bring up to you to see if that had any relevance to you, but yeah.
It was a little past the due date, I think, but uh, AT Aliens by Outkast was one of my favorite tracks of all time.
I feel like that's on the cusp.
Yeah, it was. I think that came out my junior year, so that was a little bit after. So I think, that's a pretty decent soundtrack. I think there's some other um there's probably some more R&B tracks that I'm not thinking about.
Maybe some Monica up in there somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'm glad we got some music knowledge from you because that's a solid list.
Oh, dude, and I gotta, Nas is If I Rule the World because that was close to being the name of the I liked that as a title, and I did like I wanted to go colder than a polar bear's toenail. That was way too much of a deep cut.
That's too inside.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry. You got one more song I gotta drop. Renee by the Lost Boys.
Yes.
Yep.
So good. That is like there's a lot of stuff I gotta start and going back to listening to. But yeah, it was so good. These are all great tracks.
We're gonna have to do a whole episode with you just about hypothetical. Like if this book ever turns into a movie, you're like in trouble with a soundtrack because you're gonna want to choose every song under the sun.
There's so many good ones.
There's so many good ones, and and it's funny because like the name of the book is still like up there,
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny. I think
Mhm.
CeeLo and Shaq did a Pepsi commercial, I think 2 years ago.
I I can tell you that Kilo has always been on my list to interview. I would love to talk to
Mm.
him.
Yeah, same here. I'd love to send him the book.
The dude is so fascinating.
Yeah, I saw him. He hasn't been on. He's on Instagram, but he has not updated in about a year. So I need to figure out other avenues to try to contact him at some
Well,
point.
if I find him, I'll connect you, or
Appreciate.
we'll get in touch because this is great. So, what has what has the reader response been to this book so far?
It's been overwhelmingly incredible. Not just not just like I would say these types of books who, have gone through their like 90s like reminiscence, their love of NSYNC and everything else, pop culture, but it's also, their kids, right? Who are not even close to living this era, being able to find themselves, in these characters, right? For them to be like, oh, I want to go into journalism, or oh, that's so cool you got to do that. But a lot of it is like, I found my voice and I'm really excited that I can go after something. I had the daughter of an elementary school friend read my other books and then read Baller, and then she loved it so much she sent me like a message through her mom about like a review of it, and it was incredible. Like to be able to affect young a younger generation and inspire them, dude, that's an incredible feeling. And I think it's not just the nostalgia, but it's also, what are you trying to convey? Like, why are you telling this story? And I think that's what audiences are resonating with. It's not just a trip down memory lane or, oh, wow, you did this, but it's like, wow, you were able to do this being who you were. That's awesome. I can go and do something, whatever my dreams are. And I think that has been the response of like people really finding themselves through my character and then hopefully motivating them to aspire and chase their own dreams.
When I book these interviews, even if I haven't read the book yet, I can kind of tell when an interview or a conversation is going to be special. And I said to Matt, I said, we got to do this. Just look at the synopsis and the cover, and I was obsessed with it. I could not stop thinking about it. So I reached out to you immediately, and you hopped on, and I'm so grateful you were here today.
I
Confirm on every single point.
I appreciate this. This was it's always it's fun to talk about that time period, and it's it's in some ways I still feel like I'm living in the 90s. If you look at whatever girl I had a crush on is who I still follow on Instagram, but it's fun.
Oh,
I still have a mini crush on Tiffany Amber Thiessen, but I don't think there's anybody who doesn't.
Well, if we ever get her on the show,
One of the fun things was my first crush was Belinda Carlisle from the right from the Go-Go's.
Yep.
And during the pandemic, a friend of mine um ended up doing like became I guess was she's a travel writer, so she was friends with Belinda Carlisle, so she did an interview with her on Zoom, and I asked her if she can say hi to me, and Belinda Carlisle give me a shout out like on Zoom and waved to me, and it was like, and I'm still like I saved that video. It was incredible.
oh, that's awesome.
well,
So
where can people grab this book, and where can people find what you're up to?
sure. So, definitely check out it's Wish I Was a Baller is available on Amazon. It's at Barnes and Nobles. You can go into Barnes and Nobles and buy it. You can order off Amazon.com. You can go to your local bookstore and find it there. It's everywhere. You can find me at amarshahwrites.com. That's AmarShahWrites.com, or find me on Instagram at Amar Shahism. And so yeah, so huge fan, appreciate all the time and effort, and I'm so glad you all enjoy the book.
Well, if we definitely got to have you back on again to chat about more fun
Oh
stuff
yeah.
because
Yeah,
this was great.
let me know. Bob and Matt, this is so much fun.
You have family here.
Yep.
I
There you do.
Guys, I appreciate it. And you have the press kit, so if you need any photos or any other material, let me know.
Yep, cool.
Cool.
Talk to you
Thank you.
soon.
All right, take care.
Bye.